This is Cashing Out on VSiN, the sports betting network.
This is Cashing Out right here on VSiN, the sports betting network, and we've got ourselves 3 absolutely tremendous hours for you as we've got ourselves a lot that's happening with regards to what we're going to be finding in Major League Baseball for Sunday. We've got ourselves still some playoff action that is lingering out there in terms of the NBA, the NHL, and so much more, so we're going to be looking at that. We're going to be turning forward to Sunday as well. We've got ourselves a quartet of great guests that are going to be joining me, and we're going to be breaking it all down. So we do have ourselves a great show tonight as John Von Tobel, one of our favorites here at the network, he's going to be joining me in an hour. We're going to be breaking down the NBA playoffs with him, and in 30 minutes, we've got ourselves the UFC 315 main event. We're going to be talking about that with Doug Vazquez. He does a tremendous job over at Sports Illustrated, so we're going to have some fun out there with him, and we do have ourselves a few pretty good fights as we have Valentina Shevchenko, who's actually the underdog in that main event. So we're going to be needing to talk about that and so much more. And then we're going to be taking a look at a little bit of hockey as well. We're going to have a pair of great guests coming up in the final hour. Chris Chapman, along with Danny Webster. They both do a great job covering the Vegas Golden Knights. They're actually going to be joining me after that Golden Knights versus Oilers game goes final. I know that Scott Seidenberg was very much looking at that one. And you've got ourselves a very interesting matchup there. 3-2 right now with the Golden Knights in the lead. Second intermission there. So we'll see what we're going to be getting in the third period. Right now, that live total is a 7.5 at a minus 105 if you're looking to go over. So we're going to be gauging that and so much more. And something else that you do want to be gauging. Right now, we've got ourselves a tremendous game between the Timberwolves and the Warriors. A little bit lower scoring than expected. Right now, that live total is 190.5. And with how close of a game this is, I think that this is where you can find some nice angles with regards to a live total. Because if you do have yourself a differential, depending upon which team is leading / losing, of like 5 to 6 points with about 30 seconds remaining, being able to find a live over could sometimes be very good in this respect. And I do think that with this entire series, it is going to be very much a war, to say the least, between these two teams, as Jimmy Butler has been able to heat up a little bit for the Golden State Warriors, and they are going to need that. With Steph Curry currently being out of the fold, they're going to need him to step up in a big way, and they've been able to get quite a bit of something out of Jonathan Kuminga off the bench. Always a guy that I feel like has been a very, very curious gentleman throughout his entire career, has really been able to put it all together here tonight. He's been big in the Warriors being able to hold in this game, and to the Warriors' credit, they've had to reduce on the amount of threes that they've taken in this game. They've went a little bit more down low. Heck, Trace Jackson-Davis, I recognize he didn't play too much, but he did make the start in this one. But they've went 7 of 18 from three-point range, so they've done a great job with that respect. And for the Minnesota Timberwolves, just continues to be Anthony Edwards coming up with all these big plays. He's had 31, and Julius Randle has had 24. So lots of intrigue out there. And if I were to gauge this right now, man, I just feel like the Timberwolves are going to be able to find a way to be able to get the job done. That's just the way that I've been viewing this game. But right now, that live money line, or that live spread, is minus 3.5 at a minus 105. Don't know if I want to test that here, but we'll see if something comes about, because I do always feel like live betting these NBA playoff games, that's always the way that you want to go. And I'm trying to see if we can get a few dead possessions here, be able to get into that like 5-6 point differential mark with about 30 seconds remaining, come in on and over. That has worked out very well for me over the years with regards to these playoff games, and I think that that could be something that does present itself. So we're going to be gauging that. How about if we do take a look at what we're just getting in terms of that playoff picture in general, though, as it has been a fun series, to say the least, and just a fun bunch of series here, because we've got ourselves, obviously, the Celtics and the New York Knicks. That all of a sudden got a little bit more real with the Celtics bouncing back today, 115-93 after just a dismal first 2 games of shooting for the Boston Celtics. They were able to bounce back with a 20 of 43 point shooting performance here, and that's a big thing that you always want to look for in basketball in general. It's sort of like the stock market. You want to sell at its highest point, you want to buy in at their lowest point, and for the Boston Celtics, they couldn't go much lower in terms of their 3-point shooting. They were able to have everyone fire on all cylinders in this one. Peyton Pritchard went 5 of 10 from 3-point range. Jason Tatum was able to put up some big numbers. Derek White had himself a nice big game as well, so I thought that that was very interesting to take a look at. And with regards to the New York Knicks, a team that they were able to get those first 2 games out there in Boston, and for the New York Knicks, it's been a team that in general has been just shall we say, hit or miss all season long. But, I mean, the way that I take a look at this series, I still think that the Celtics have a good chance to be able to get it done because a lot of people want to talk about, the Boston Celtics blew 2 20-plus point leads and everything like that. Well, you have to get a 20-point lead in order to blow a 20-point lead. So you've got both respects there. Now, you don't want to be blowing 20-point leads or anything like that, but I still think that that says something. The fact that they were able to get up 20-plus points in both of those games, and here in this one, they were able to finish off the job, as it is cashing out with myself, Greg Peterson, right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And if you're taking a look at some Major League Baseball action, for one, we really didn't get too many early games. You're going to be getting a very early one on Sunday. You've got yourself a good old Mother's Day game that's going to be starting at 12:30 or 11:35 a.m. Eastern time. But that said, we've got a pair of games that are lingering out there right now for the LA Angels, currently up on the Baltimore Orioles by a count of 4-0. That live total is currently at a 9.5, and this was not necessarily the world's greatest pitching matchup between Jack Conowitz and Kyle Gibson, and something that you want to be noting is that there's a clear divide between the haves and the have-nots with regards to these Major League Baseball bullpens, as you've got a few that are very, very trustworthy, like out there in the NL West, the San Francisco Giants, the San Diego Padres, which we need to talk about that here for a second. We're going to hard pause here because the San Diego Padres knocked off the Colorado Rockies today by a count of 21-0. I was talking about this off air with Scott Seidenberg before we went on here because he does a tremendous job with the show, what have you. I mean, we were talking about relegation and how we need it in professional sports here in the States. And he was talking about, let's send these guys down to AAA. AAA would be generous right now for the Colorado Rockies. 6-33 thus far this season. 6-33. Like, what are we doing here? Like, at some point, pride needs to be taking over. Like, when you play 39 Major League Baseball games, you should be falling rear end backwards into about 12 wins. And they can't even do that. So, yeah, that was rough to say the least. As our good friend Bradley Blaylock, 3 2/3 innings, allows 12 runs, all of which were earned. He's now rocking an ERA of a 12.94, and this was just really, really sad to take a look at. They had their backup catcher, Jacob Stallings, filled 2 innings, and he gave up 1 run, and that was about their best 2 innings of work that they had all game long. And Stephen Kolek went into Coors Field and threw a shutout. Stephen Kolek, not to be confused with Tyler Kolek, who used to be on the Marquette Golden Eagles. So, yeah, it's not great. And sometimes when it comes to sports betting, you don't need to overthink things. Like, after the first series of the season, I realized, I thought the Colorado Rockies were going to be bad. Turns out they're really, really, really bad. I want no part of these guys whatsoever. We're just going to fade them into oblivion. And it's just like what we did with the Chicago White Sox last year. Like, if all you did last year was fade the Chicago White Sox, you just made an absolute killing. Like, there's no trade secrets here. There's no let's really dive in on the analytics. It just comes down to the Rockies stink this bad that you just can't bet on them. And that's the way that we need to be operating right now, because until the Colorado Rockies, forget about win a game, show a pulse. Like what they did here today, it's deplorable to the game of baseball. They lost by a count of 21-0, and they were down 19-0 when it came to the 5th inning. They were down 19-0 in the top of the 5th. Like, that just can't happen. Like, that's where we're at right now with the Colorado Rockies, who are, we always talk about Coors Field and the elevation advantage. They're 4-16 at home. Like, my gosh, you've got elevation on your side. Heck, they've already played 20 of their 39 games at home. They played more home games than they've had road games, and they're 6-33 right now. So, yeah, we had to address that. That's rough, to say the least. Like I was saying, with some of these teams, they're just big, giant fades right now. And that's how simple it is right now in Major League Baseball from time to time. You just take a look at some of these teams, and it's like, what team do I just absolutely not want to back whatsoever, and how do I get money in to fade them? And that's right now what I've been trying to do with regards to the Colorado Rockies. I've been doing that a lot with the Chicago White Sox, which, to the credit of the White Sox, at the very least, are showing a little bit more of a pulse this year than they did a season ago. It's still been not great for them, to say the least. If you took the run line today of the Miami Marlins, you were able to get there late, so credit to them. But, man, it's just really, really a rough state of affairs out there for them, and they are 6-33 for the Colorado Rockies. It just can't be unseen, and I was talking about this with regards to this Angels versus Orioles game. Bullpen's not great, to say the least. You're already into the bullpen for the Baltimore Orioles right now. The Angels are up by a count of 5-0. Men on second and third with 2 outs in the bottom of the 5th inning. Kyle Gibson, he got run out there, and he gave up 5 runs over the course of 4 innings, and this man lowered his ERA with his start tonight of a 13-11. Yeah, when your ERA is north of 9, you're going the wrong way down a one-way street. And to the credit of Jack Conowitz, has actually been rock solid thus far for the LA Angels. But keep this in mind as well if you're looking for a little bit of a live betting opportunity, because last I checked, that live total was 7.5. Might be going northward as I'm doing the spiel, but that's it for the LA Angels. They came into the night with a 6.99 bullpen ERA. Like, these guys have had flamethrowers on their back all season long, and if you recall that series last week against the Detroit Tigers, one where, yep, guess what? I was fading the LA Angels all throughout in that one. I still remember the night where they gave up 2 home runs in the 9th inning to Riley Green. Like, they gave up 2 home runs in the same inning to the same man. How that happens, I still have absolutely no idea, but that's what they've been doing thus far this season. So certainly something that you do want to be taking note of there. And then we'll give you guys a little bit of an update here. The fact that the third period has started out there in Edmonton, 3-2 right now. The Golden Knights in the lead on the Oilers. You've got about 16 minutes and change remaining in the third period. That live goal total is still at a 7.5, and you're getting that at a plus 135. And I do think that the biggest thing that this comes down to is, can the Oilers get some sort of a score here in the next few minutes? Because I think that that's very key. If you're looking to be able to get the over, you're going to need Edmonton to be able to help you out in some form or capacity. Both of these goaltenders have had a little bit of a rough night in the box thus far, and both of these teams have been very much on the offensive, but I do feel like things are starting to be able to rein in just a little bit more. But as we know, with regards to NHL playoffs, things explode in a hurry. I remember Scott Seidenberg on his show talking about this as well. The way that we've been taking a look at the NHL playoffs has been lots of multi-goal wins, because when you're down a goal with about 2 to 3 minutes remaining, you get the empty net. We've already seen 2 pretty much buzzer-beater goals already here in the NHL playoffs to be able to cover puck lines as well. So something very much to be mindful of. We'll be taking a look at this, and we do have to take a look forward to what we're going to be getting in on Sunday in the NBA playoffs, and checking in on Timberwolves versus Warriors. That game right now, very, very tight, 92-86, 2 minutes remaining. So we'll give you an update on the NBA playoffs on the flip side right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to Cashing Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're back here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. We've got ourselves some great playoff action going down right now. We're tracking this Golden Knights versus Edmonton Oilers game. 13 minutes remaining in the third period there. Still 3-2 Golden Knights. So a little bit of a slow third period thus far. We'll see if things get picked up a little bit more there. And then we've got ourselves Timberwolves versus Warriors. And the Timberwolves have been able to pull away just a little bit here. 96-89, $113 remaining. And now is where you can find some interesting in-game opportunities, in my opinion, because sometimes when you get those late fouls, you're able to just find yourself in a very good scenario. And right now, we're finding that live total anywhere between a 191.5 to a 192.5. And if we could get this back down to a 191.5, I'm going to be willing to fire in on the over here, because this is very much a golden opportunity, in my opinion, to be able to try to be able to extract a little bit of value. Just found it at 191.5. So we're going to be going over on this thing live, and we're going to try to be able to get a little bit of late game felling. We're going to probably need a little bit of a score here from the Golden State Warriors. That would be able to help us out just a little bit. But when you do get into these sorts of scenarios where a team is down 5 to 6 points, it's not like in college basketball where you get 100 million billion fouls or anything like that. But you do get a little bit of late game felling. You know that with the Warriors, the intensity is going to be ratcheted up just a little bit as well. So I think that this is a good spot here. So we're going to take a look there. And if you're looking at the live spread right now with the Timberwolves, they're minus 7.5 live, but you have to lay a minus 145 there. I was about to say, I think that you got a little bit of an opportunity there, but yeah, I don't want to be laying a minus 145 now up to a minus 160. That's something that very much do want to be avoiding on that front, but we're going to sweat out the total here for last minute or so. We do have the Timberwolves now going to the free throw line, by the way, so could really use the Golden State Warriors to be able to trade bucket for bucket here, be able to get in on that live 190.5 as I need pretty much 3 more points. And for the Golden State Warriors, I do think that they're going to be able to do just enough of their part to be able to get that over. So let's take a look there. And hey, there's the Golden State Warriors 3. We've got 43 seconds remaining. We need just 1 more point to be able to get this thing over. So there we go. We're looking good on that front end. We are looking good with regards to the entirety of the NBA playoffs, as this has been quite wonky what we've seen here in the NBA playoffs, because when you think about all sports, when you think about upsets that happen in the playoffs, I always think the NHL has the most, shall we say, volatility in terms of the professional sports. Now, if you're looking at college sports, obviously college basketball, where you've got 15 and 16 seeds able to win games in the NCAA tournament, that's always number one, and that's a one and done sort of event. That said, when it comes to the just professional ranks in general, I always do think that hockey has themselves some very wild results. Obviously, when it comes to the NFL playoffs, that's another one and done event as well, though I'm not seeing quite as much of that in the last few seasons with the Kansas City Chiefs and their reign of terror, and then the Philadelphia Eagles, obviously, this year getting the job done. But when you think NBA, you think chalk. You think of the 1 seeds, you think of the 2 seeds being able to get it done, but we have seen something just completely different here in the playoffs, and it just is very curious. And I feel like it's probably because we're at a little bit of a crossroads of the NBA, because for the longest time it was where the Golden State Warriors were sort of that team that they were the big bad wolf and everyone was trying to chase them down when you had peak Splash Brothers. Like, that goes without saying. They were able to have their reign of terror for quite some time. It was Warriors and the Cavaliers in the finals for quite a while. And then you were able to see the LA Lakers step up in that bubble tournament, and ever since then it's sort of been one team here, one team there, the Bucks winning a title, the Denver Nuggets being able to win a title, the Boston Celtics being able to win a title. So it's been a little bit more teeter-totter-ish. By the way, that live over was able to get there very, very easily. We're now at 102-94. That is why you try to take a look at some of these live totals, because things do get harebrained even in the NBA with regards to scoring as well. And I think that that's something that you do want to be taking a look at if you're trying to do some live scoring and you want to do some live bets with regards to totals, because you can sometimes find some very, very off numbers with regards to these. Because if you think that it's going to be no fouling or anything like that, like when you've got yourself a scenario where a team is up 12 plus, then they just pretty much take the air out of the ball, they just dribble it out, the backups come in and everything like that. In the final 30 seconds, you're able to get that under. Like, I was seeing it right here. I knew that the Golden State Warriors weren't going to just roll over and die. It was a single digit game. When you saw a total that was popping up that low, you knew that they would at the very least give you a little bit of something, try to trade bucket for bucket. That made taking the live over relatively easy. That one was able to get there, so do love to be able to see that. But that said, I do think that when it comes to live betting NBA games, sometimes the best thing to do is wait until the final minute and look for that scenario and just play it out, because the algorithm sometimes just doesn't take into account the human element of things as well. So that was very profitable, and that's one that we were able to get in here. And smarter bets, they do start here at VSiN, and we've got everything covered for you guys for a full year with our 14-month promo right now, because for a limited time, typically we charge about $240 for 12 months. You're going to be getting 14 months, so 2 months for free and at a $41 discount for $199. All you have to do is go to vsin.com/subscribe, type in that promo code of PRO, P-R-O. That gives you daily best bets from all of our VSiN shows and guests, exclusive betting splits from DraftKings and Circa, 24/7 live video and show replays on the VSiN Watch app. Plus, you get all of our special edition betting guides. I know that we're going to have a ton for the NFL and so much more. And I'm already starting on the college basketball guide. That's not for 6 months from now, but I'm already getting started on that. The transfer portal is rest for nobody. 2,400 guys in the transfer portal. Let's go. But that said, head on over to vsin.com/subscribe. Utilize that promo code of PRO, P-R-O. That'll get you a $41 discount and 2 months for free. That's vsin.com/subscribe, as this is cashing out right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And Warriors tried to make a little bit of a game of it, 102-97 the final, so it does fall underneath the closing total. And with the Warriors, they were about a 5-point underdog in a lot of spots. So that 3-pointer that we saw here in the final closing seconds, that I believe it was Draymond Green that was able to hit that one. I will need to double check that one, because sometimes the feed is a few seconds before what you're seeing actually on your screen. But I mean, that 3 with about 5 seconds remaining, fading away. I just saw it. Significant to some, to say the least. But 102-97, we draw ourselves a final there. But I mean, just in terms of the crossroads that we've got in the NBA playoffs right now, it's just very interesting in that a lot of the teams that are at the top of the NBA right now, they're just younger teams in general. They're a little bit less experienced teams, like the OKC Thunder. They've been involved in a few postseasons together, but it's not a case where the OKC Thunder have a whole bunch of experience. Like, if you want to do the side-by-side comparison, the average age of the starting player on the OKC Thunder is like 20 months older than that of the Auburn Tigers, who made the Final Four. Like, it's relatively insane. They're obviously the Cleveland Cavaliers. They've been able to make a few playoffs before. They've never really been a team with this high of expectations, and sometimes you need to fail in order to be able to succeed. Now with the Indiana Pacers, it's not like this team has necessarily been to a bunch of conference finals when they were really at their peak in their heyday. That was about a decade and a half ago, and that's when you had like Lance Stevenson blowing into the ear of LeBron James. I remember that all too well, and all the gifs and memes that came out on that. But for the Indiana Pacers, we've obviously got a guy in Tyrese Halliburton who's just able to take over a game in general. So that's been fun to be able to decipher. But I do think that with just the height of powers in the NBA, with these top teams, the Cleveland Cavaliers, the OKC Thunder, their lack of experience really coming through here right about now. And they always say in the NBA, you need to lose in order to be able to win. That could be exactly what we're experiencing right now. But Timberwolves, they're looking to be able to take that next step as well. They now get the job done. And for the Golden State Warriors, now it becomes a case where that game number 4 on Monday is going to be paramount, because without Steph Curry in the fold, I felt like they just needed to take one out of these next 3 to feel very, very good. Obviously, game number 2 did not go quite as planned. Here in game number 3, it was a better effort. They lose the game, and, well, somehow, some way, they were able to get in there. If you were able to get a late, like, plus 5.5, something like that, because the opener was 5. Some places closed 5. Some places closed 5.5, 6. If you were able to get a 5.5 in there, you should be feeling very good that it was Jonathan Kuminga who made that late 3 to be able to get that number down to 5 at the end. But I do think that just with the Warriors, and right now we are seeing this opener coming out with the Minnesota Timberwolves being a 6-point favorite for game number 4, and right now that opening total is 199.5. Very intriguing on that total, because we did see a little bit of a different approach with the Golden State Warriors not taking as many threes in this game, because they're known as the Splash Brothers, and they went 10 of 23 from 3-point range. As a matter of fact, north of 68% of their shots came from 2-point range, so they're really looking to jam it out, down low a little bit more. Jonathan Kuminga was able to have himself a big game for the Warriors. Certainly going to be an X factor moving forward for them, and going to be very curious to see what they get out of Braden Podziemski in game number 4 as well, because with Podziemski, he had himself quite a bit of a role when it came to game number 3. Here tonight, there was just not a lot to be had, and Podziemski was a little bit more of that do-it-all guy when it came to game number 3 as well. He had 11 points, 6 boards, 6 assists. In this game, I think that he only had like 5 or so points. He was able to still dole out a few dimes and everything like that, but just was not able to really make too much of an impact in this game. So I think that that's one place where they're going to need to go back into the drawing boards. And with what we are seeing tonight, the one thing that I have yet to really touch upon is the Seattle Mariners game, as we do have them tied up 3-3 against the Toronto Blue Jays right now. That game is in the 7th inning, and going to be very interesting to gauge the Seattle Mariners team in general, because what I feel like a lot of people don't recognize about the Seattle Mariners and their home ballpark is that it actually suppresses offense more so than Coors Field elevates offense. If you look at ballpark factors from the year 2024, T-Mobile Park is very much a pitcher's ballpark, and yet we've been seeing quite a bit of an explosion from the Seattle Mariners. Big dumper Cal Raleigh, all that he's been able to do this season. Jorge Polanco was a big giant disappointment last season. He's really been able to come to the forefront as well. So that's going to be a fascinating one. Right now that live total is at an 8.5, and with the Blue Jays and the Mariners, average bullpens. Not great, not terrible. So we're going to see what we're going to be getting on that front, and we're going to be seeing what we get in terms of fight game as well as UFC 315, the main event. That is going to be happening soon, and Doug Vazquez, who does great work at Sports Illustrated, he's going to be chatting with me about it next right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to Cashing Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're back here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Great to be joined by this man in studio. It's always a little bit different when you can get these guys in studio. And Doug Vazquez, he does a great job covering the fight game over at Sports Illustrated. And he's got the suit on and everything for those watching on YouTube TV and wherever you're able to get VSiN. And I really appreciate it. Doug, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I had to join. I always see you in the suit, so I figured I had to come dressed. So thanks for having me again.
You get an A+, and you got the memo on the black theme tonight with regards to suit as well. So bonus points there, and bonus points for the fact that we've got ourselves a few great fights coming up in terms of this UFC 315 main card. We're about halfway through right now doing this as the Aldo fight is going on, but we saw a little bit earlier Benoit Saint Denis, who he was on a little bit of a skid. I really thought like 24 months ago he was coming into his own, had a little bit of a rough one. He was able to get the job done just a few minutes ago, and what did you see in that fight and him trying to be able to work his way back towards the top?
Yeah, so like you said, he I think he really needed a win here. He came into the UFC as a really highly touted prospect. Unfortunately, he ran into the likes of Dustin Poirier and never really bounced back. But he did bounce back in this. The prep leg took the fight on short notice, and Saint Denis was able to get in there and get the submission in the second round. So He looked really good.
Yeah, he did, and that's going to be interesting to see moving forward because with him, he was on that skid that you were talking about, but it was a really good competition as well, and he's a guy that I'm a little bit high on, and something else I'm very high on is, how about if we talk about the fight that I think is just the most interesting on the card for tonight, as Valentina Shevchenko, you just don't find her as an underdog very often. Right now, we're seeing her in the neighborhood about plus 110, something like that. How do you take a look at this fight that's going to be coming up in a few minutes, because this is going to be one of the co-main event fights, and for Shevchenko, whenever I see her at plus money, I always think that there's value there.
Yeah, exactly. When I saw that line come out, I think the line should probably be flipped to where she should be the favorite. Manofiora is a very tough opponent. She's on a 7-fight win streak in the UFC, 12-fight win streak overall. But I do think Valentine's experience and just the way she's able to dictate the way the fight's going to go, I think she goes in there and gets the job done. And win or lose, I'm happy with betting her at plus money. She's pound for pound #1 women fighter in the UFC right now. Obviously a future Hall of Famer. So yeah, plus money, bet Valentina every single time.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I feel like the women's game in general just has been going through a little bit of transition recently because we've been seeing a lot of these fighters be able to rise up. You mentioned it with Floria. She's been able to do a really good job going on that 7-fight win streak. And just how have you been able to gauge really the women's game in general? Because it does feel like it's been just changing so much over the last 24 or so months, and we've got more better, shall we say, competitors than ever before.
Yeah, so Valentina is fighting tonight. She was able to get the belt back in September at the Sphere, and Amanda Nunes, who is the face of women's MMA and the face of women's UFC, she's coming back. So I think the women's division, MMA in general is a very cyclical sport. I think especially in the women's divisions because there's fewer divisions. But it is an exciting time. Big fight tonight, Fiore against Shevchenko for the belt. We just saw another prior on this card. Natalia Silva got the job done against a former champion, Alexa Grasso, at flyweight. So that's an interesting prospect to look at, and that might be a title eliminator. So whoever wins this fight tonight, you might see Natalia Silva step in and get a title shot here soon.
Yep, absolutely. And Silva, from everything that I had seen, didn't see the whole fight, but I saw bits and pieces of it. She was looking very dominant.
Yeah, she was able just to control the range the whole time, and Alexa just really couldn't get anything done.
Yeah, not too surprised there. She has been very good in terms of being able to go on this little bit of a run. As we do have Doug Vazquez, who does great work over at Sports Illustrated, joining me on Cash and Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And then we've got the welterweight men's fight that's going to be coming up a little bit later on as well. As Muhammad is a -$2 favorite in this fight. And I do think that this one is going to be very interesting to take a look at because when it comes down to this one, Muhammad has really been able to do a nice job of going on this massive run, entering in here 24-2. But I do think that this fight is just going to be offering a little bit of a different dynamic as well. Take me through this one and whether or not you think Muhammad is going to be able to get the job done, or perhaps the way to be able to get down on that -$2 and perhaps get a little bit of plus price.
Yeah, so I think this fight is priced pretty fairly. I think Muhammad's the rightful favorite. I don't necessarily think for maybe the casual UFC fan that this is going to be a very exciting fight because it is a clash of styles. JDM's a very slick striker, excellent boxing, and Bilal is known for his grappling and his cardio and his constant forward pressure. So I think it's going to be very high level. I do think at the end of the day, Bilal's pressure and his wrestling and his grappling is just going to be able to get the job done. Priced at -$2, I kind of stayed away from the money line there, but when I was looking at some props on DraftKings, I do like him to win a unanimous decision at plus 130, and also took a look at over 5.5 takedowns at plus 132. I think in his last 4 fights, he had 9, 7, 6, 5 takedowns. I think that he says he's going to strike with JDM, but I don't believe him. I think that's a little bit of sportsmanship, and I think you just see him continue to take JDM to the mat.
And I'm so glad that you point that out with the style of the clash of styles as well, because I always think that that's so interesting because they always say that styles make fights, and just how do you take a look at it when you do have a matchup like we're going to be seeing a little bit later on, where you've got one guy that's looking to stand up a little bit more and another guy that's looking to just completely take him out of his game.
Well, they always say the best base in MMA is wrestling, and I think Bilal just has that superior advantage in the wrestling and grappling game. He recently started training with Khabib and Islam Makhachev, and he was always elite, but I think I've seen an evolution in his game and everything that he does when he's shooting for those takedowns. They're more violent. He's doing them with more purpose. And JDM, he does have some pretty decent takedown defense, but I think, again, Bilal is just at another level right now.
Yep, I think so as well, and it's going to be a lot of fun to be able to take a look at these two fights, and certainly we've got ourselves a just jam-packed summer in general with regards to UFC, because we were talking about this a little bit off air with the Apex. You don't necessarily love all those fights, but they've really been able to expand them. They're able to get us fights darn near every single week here during the summer months, and how do you take a look at things week in and week out for the UFC? Because while we've got these great fights here for UFC 315, there's a lot of money-making opportunities that there weren't just as little as 2 to 3 years ago.
Yeah, I think, coming out of COVID, the UFC did kind of lean at the Apex, but they're on the road. I think they're doing 43 road shows this year. And I think, that it is a fun summer coming up. You have International Fight Week, and the main event tonight actually has huge implications in that, because if Belal wins, that means Islam Makhachev is going to stay at 155, and Dana White has pretty much said that he will be taking on Ilia Topuria for that title. That is just such a massive fight. It's one of the biggest fights in years. When you look at Belal Muhammad, he's kind of been disrespected in a lot of eyes by the UFC, so this actually might be the first fight that the UFC wants Belal to win, because they get that fight. If Belal wins, Ilya stays at 155. Now, if JDM pulls the upset, then Islam does go up to 170 and try to become a double champ.
Yep, and to your point as well, with International Fight Week coming up and this having big implications for it, intentionally or unintentionally, lots of international fighters here tonight. We saw that just all throughout the card, so I thought that was big. And then how about if we do take a little bit of a look forward to what we're going to be seeing next week as well, because I just always get fascinated by Gilbert Burns. I always feel like he's one of the most interesting fighters out there in UFC. He's going to be going up against Michael Morales, who's going to be entering in at 17-0. How do you take a look at that fight? Because for Burns, he's trying to work his way back up too.
He is starting to work his way back up, and Gilbert he's actually one of the very first fighters I interviewed when I got into this game, and I think he's being maybe disrespected. Morales is an up and coming prospect. You mentioned 17-0, but I know Gilbert. He was just posting on social media the last couple days. He looks like he's in phenomenal shape. And I think he's one of those guys that's going to take the disrespect. You can go two ways with that. That's with the disrespect, where you can use it to fuel you and be smart about it, or you can go the other way. But I think Gilbert has that fight IQ, and I think he probably does get the job done against Morales.
Yep, and that's going to be a fun one, and that's actually a really good fight night card as well, because some of these can be hits, some of these can be misses, but you've got a lot of guys that maybe they've beaten up on a little bit of, shall we say, lesser competition, but they're going to be getting a shot here, so I'm glad about that. And then we've got about 90 seconds remaining. We're talking about a lot of these guys are being up-and-comers, a lot of these guys, they're trying to take down a belt. Is there one or two fighters in general that you're looking at that currently doesn't have a belt that you think that they could rise to that in the next few months?
I think I mentioned Ilia Topuria, and that might be an easy way out, but he just vacated the featherweight title, and when he's just so dangerous, and I do think when he steps into, it's going to be the toughest fight Islam's ever had. So that is someone I'm looking at to get another belt. As far as the bantamweight division's very exciting right now. You have Merab rematching against O'Malley, and the top of that division, there's just a lot going on. So I think O'Malley, Merab has big implications in the bantamweight division for some of those contenders below them. But yeah, they're like you said, there's just so many exciting fights coming up this summer. So.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of them, and when it comes down to it as well, this UFC 315 card is nice, and the fact that they had it in Canada tonight as well is something that I love. You mentioned it. They're really trying to get out there on the road a little bit more, which I think is going to be big for the UFC moving forward. Obviously, they didn't this time have it to where they were wrapping up at like 3 a.m. or something like that as well. I remember the England fight a few months ago. That was a little bit rough to say the least for some of those guys, but really good to see, and we've got ourselves a lot of up-and-coming fighters that are getting their shot, and I know you, Doug, are doing a great job of covering it all, so really appreciate you joining me tonight. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Greg. Appreciate it.
Absolutely great to be able to get Doug Vazquez aboard. We've got ourselves a great finish with regards to UFC 315, and we've got ourselves a great Sunday baseball card as well. So let's talk some baseball next, right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're back here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. We have got drama here in the NHL playoffs. The Vegas Golden Knights, they put the biscuit in the basket as the time is expiring. 4-3 the final. My goodness, that was a whale of a final as they were trying to call it no goal because the Oilers, they had a guy, was not seeing who specifically tipped it, but tipped it essentially right into the goal. Golden Knights, they get the job done by a count of 4-3. That is a massive one in the series, to say the least. So that game wraps up in regulation. It was looking like we are destined for overtime as the Golden Knights allowed a very, very, shall we say, soft goal just before then, and I think that I'm being generous in calling it a soft goal, but you were able to see a little bit of an explosion of offense in the final 3 minutes and change, and the Edmonton Oilers fans, they are stunned. 4-3, Golden Knights get the job done. Riley Smith with the goal in the final half of a second to be able to get there. That is now 3 goals that we've seen here in the playoffs in the final. We're going to give an arbitrary number, second and a half. You saw 2 that were able to cover the goal line. Obviously, this one was an actual game winner. And Stuart Skinner, man, not a great performance here for our good friend Mr. Skinner, to say the least. For those that are fans of The Simpsons, that's where you start yelling Skinner. So that was not amazing, to say the least. I will say Hill for the Golden Knights, not necessarily his finest performance either. He allowed 3 goals himself, only 17 saves. But Golden Knights, they win by a count of 4-3. That was absolutely rambunctious, and that was absolutely crazy. So that was tremendous right there, and now you've got yourself the Golden Knights being able to take control of that series, being able to win one on the road against the Edmonton Oilers. Absolutely massive for that series. And for those taking a look at a little bit of nighttime baseball, right now you've got yourself the Orioles and the Angels in the top of the 7th inning. Angels currently up by a count of 5-1. I will remind you again, this is an Angels bullpen that entered in the night with a 6.99 bullpen ERA, and you always try to wonder, who's pitching for this team, that team, what have you. The entire Angels bullpen is not good, to say the least. So right now we're seeing a live total of 88.5. I don't think it's a world's worst look if you're looking at a live over as of right now. So that's just where I stand in that one, and we're going to be gauging that one moving forward. And right now the Blue Jays up by a count of 4-3 on the Seattle Mariners. That game is in the 8th inning. The live total is 8.5, and the over is just at -180. So I would be like, yeah, you know what? You could be able to get down there, but at a -180, I would say that you probably want to be holding on to your shekels as of right now. Try to see if you get a little bit of a better opportunity, but how about if we do start diving in on some of these games for Sunday as well, because we do have ourselves all 30 teams in action for a tremendous Mother's Day Sunday. And before I go any further, happy Mother's Day to all that are mothers out there, all the future mothers out there. You are very much respected, and, well, you know what? You deserve your day because you have to put up with sons like myself that are talking about sports and are being rambunctious people that are taking a look at sports bets and are sweating out things like the Orioles and the Angels tonight. So happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, and hopefully you have a great day on Sunday. And how about if we do have a great day by taking a look at, ironically enough, a game that we are seeing going down right now, the Blue Jays and the Seattle Mariners. We'll take a look at that Sunday game first, as it's good to be for the Toronto Blue Jays, and this is why you have to figure that they're going to bank some bullpen pieces for this game. Jose Urena is going to be getting the start for them, going up against Bryce Miller. And Miller and the Seattle Mariners right around about -155, -160 favorites. Total on this game is 8. And yeah, I want no part of Jose Urena. If you've ever gauged him throughout his career, he's not good. He doesn't get a lot of strikeouts. He gives up a lot of contact. For his career, north of 3.5 walks per 9 innings. Wasn't an abject disaster with the Rangers last year, but that was a very small sample size where he sort of went from being a starter to a long reliever to being back to a starter to back to being a long reliever. He's sort of having that trajectory right now with the Toronto Blue Jays, and career 6.2 strikeouts per 9 innings, going up against a Seattle Mariners team that has been one of the best teams in all of baseball at being able to put bat to ball. Now, I do like this total under, and you're able to get the under at even money, and the big reason why I do like the under is I mentioned it in passing a little bit before, the fact that you do have yourself a just situation in general in Seattle where the ballpark actually suppresses offense more so than Coors Field elevates offense. When you get into T-Mobile Park, it is as much a pitcher-friendly ballpark as you're going to find in all of baseball, so I think that that's very big something to be taking a look at. And then additionally, you've got yourself just very much an intriguing sort of pitching matchup here with Bryce Miller going for the Seattle Mariners, who has been so much better throughout his career when he's been at home rather than when he's been on the road. That's one thing that I try to identify. I'm a big home and road splits guy when it comes to Major League Baseball, and when it comes to this man, he has been able to provide an ERA that is about 1.7 points better when he's at home rather than on the road throughout his career. Really suppresses the deep ball, and for the Toronto Blue Jays, this is just not a bunch that's able to hit the deep ball. Now, you've got plenty of guys that are able to move the line, like Vlad Guerrero Jr. entered in the night with only 4 home runs, but still has been able to give you about a 380 or so on base. George Springer, north of 400 on base. He's really been able to find it thus far this season, but again, not really giving you too many home runs. Bo Bichette currently has 2 more home runs than myself because he's got 1 here tonight. So there's really been not a lot of guys going deep for the Blue Jays, but you do have those guys at the bottom lineup, even like an Ernie Clement and company, that have been able to give you a little bit more on that front as well. So that has been something to be watching out for and noting, to say the least. And then on the flip side, you do have yourself a Seattle Mariners lineup that has had Ori Polanco just absolutely ripping the cover off the ball for Mr. Polanco. He's been able to give you north of a 360 on base. He's been able to hit 9 home runs this far this season. J.P. Crawford at the top is able to move the line. But again, other than big dumper Cal Raleigh, you don't necessarily have as many fearsome home run hitters. Ori Polanco has obviously been very good for the team, but I have a lot of guys that are just relatively consistent, moving the line sort of guys. And for the Blue Jays bullpen, I'm neither here nor there on it. We've got a few guys that have been very locked down for them. I feel like Jeff Hoffman was a really good pickup for them in the offseason. He's been able to do a nice job on that front. And then additionally, you've been able to get some good innings out of like Yimi Garcia. But when you get into Brandon Little company, it becomes a little bit more of a roll of the dice. And then for the Seattle Mariners, it's a hit or miss bullpen. You've got a really good closer in Andres Munoz. But then from there, you're relying upon Gabe Spire, who's been okay this season. You've been able to get back Matt Brash as well. And I think that that's going to be able to help out the bullpen moving forward. But I'm looking a little bit more run line on the Seattle Mariners because Bryce Miller has been so good at home. You're able to find that plus price at north of plus 130 in a lot of spots, which that's calling my name. I needed at least a plus 115 to be able to dive in there. As a matter of fact, seeing closer to a plus 140, plus 145 in some spots. So looking at that run line, and I'm going to be taking a look at that total under as it is cashing out with myself, Greg Hughes Peterson, right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And then I find this one to be a very intriguing one as well. So you've got our good friend Pablo Lopez going up against Landon Roop in Giants versus the Twins. And right now for Minnesota, you're going to be finding them anywhere between about minus 135 to minus 142, and total on this game is an 8. And with Landon Roop, he's been posting up an ERA that's hovering right around about a 4.85, but that fielding independent is a full point lower. Has been giving out a few more walks than what you'd like, but has also been able to get 10 strikeouts per 9 innings. I think that he's going to be able to do a nice job of giving this Giants team the length that they need to be able to get into that bullpen that's been so good, as you've had a lot of guys be able to excel, give you a sub-3 ERA. Spencer Bivens has been a relatively good long reliever. Randy Rodriguez has been very good. If you need a longer guy as well, Hayden Birdsong has been able to do a nice job as well. And for the Minnesota Twins, you've got a guy that I like in Yohan Duran, who's been one of the better closers in all of baseball, in my opinion, this season. But that said, if you don't get to him, Danny Kalum is a relatively good setup man, but other than Danny Kalum, when you get these guys like Griffin Jacks, Cole Sands, I really don't have a lot of faith in them. And for the Minnesota Twins, this is one of the very few times that you've seen this team fully healthy. Like Royce Lewis and Byron Buxton, it feels like one of those two guys always have to be taking a turn on the injured list. Both of these guys are now fully healthy, with Lewis just coming back over the last week. And Buxton has been rock solid. 9 home runs this season. Doesn't really draw a lot of walks, but moves the line as well. But with Matt Wallner currently being out of the fold, that does cause for this team to be a little bit more all or nothing. And then for the San Francisco Giants, Jungle Lee has done a nice job of moving the line. Haven't necessarily gotten a ton out of Willie Adames, but I think that that's going to be coming sooner rather than later. And for Minnesota, I just feel like this ballpark does a better job of suppressing offense than a lot of people want to give it credit for. I mean, look no further than the fact that, well, Minnesota this time of year, not necessarily the warmest temperatures out there in the world, and I do think that for Landon Roop, he's going to be able to excel here. And Pablo Lopez, to his credit, he has been dynamic. Like, I've been noting this for years. It always felt like positive regression was coming for Pablo Lopez, and it just never ever came. It has come this year. 2.11 ERA, fielding independent, right on line with that. North of 10 strikeouts with 1.4 walks per 9 innings, so he's done a great job there. But I think that Landon Roop could be able to go even up with regards to a start from Pablo Lopez. And if you have both of these starters give you a relatively even up matchup, I just trust in that San Francisco Giants bullpen much much more. And something else I find to be very, very intriguing is what we've seen out of this Giants bullpen as well. So circumstance where I'm going to be willing to trust in the Giants at this plus number, and I'm going to be in on the under as well. What else I'm in on is the fact that here at Circa, we've got ourselves just an absolutely massive package. As if you're looking to vacation this summer, for $400, you get a 2-night stay, but on top of that, you get a $100 dining credit, you get a $100 beverage credit, and you get a day bed over at Stadium Swim. The extras pretty much pay for itself, and I'm not kidding when I say it, because it is Mother's Day coming up on Sunday. Hopefully my mom is listening, and love you, Mom. But that said, I told my parents this is a really, really good sort of package if you're looking to visit me sometime this summer, and please do, because this is tremendous. You get 2-night stay, $100 in beverages, $100 in dining credit as well. So very good. You go to CircleLasVegas.com to be able to redeem this. Over at CircleLasVegas.com, you're able to get that $400 all-in price. So that is tremendous out there. And what else is tremendous is what we've been seeing here in the NBA playoffs, and we're going to be talking about that next with one of our main men, John Von Tobel, right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.